You ever get that buzz from a new idea? Like something clicks, maybe for work, a side project, even a whole
Oh,
business.
yeah. That initial spark is great. Absolutely essential, really.
But turning that spark into something real, something successful, that often means hitting pause before you dive right in.
Exactly. And that pause, that's where idea testing comes in.
Oh.
It's about making sure that brilliant idea isn't just brilliant to you.
Right. So today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that idea testing, why it matters, how it's done.
We've been looking at some material from cognitive market research, an article called The Importance of Testing Your Ideas Before Launch. Get ahead of the curve. It lays things out pretty clearly.
So think of this as a shortcut to understanding a really key part of strategy.
Mm-hmm. How smart companies give their innovations the best shot.
So if you're working on something new or just curious why some things fly and others, well, don't. This is for you.
Yeah. Our mission today is basically to pull out the core stuff.
Mm.
Why test, the methods used, the risks it cuts down, the upsides, and the common mistakes people make.
Okay, let's get straight into it then. Why? Why is testing such a big deal?
Well, fundamentally, it's about managing risk. Smart risk management.
Risk? How so?
Launching something completely untested is
Yeah.
basically a gamble. You're putting time, money, energy, all based on an assumption.
Right.
An assumption that your idea matches what the market actually wants.
And the research backs this up.
Yeah, the cognitive market research piece really hammers this home. Without testing, you risk launching something. Something people just don't need or desire.
And the fallout isn't just like poor sales figures, is it?
No, not at all. Think about all the other resources. Manufacturing, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
marketing campaigns. All that effort can just go down the drain if the idea itself wasn't sound.
Mm-hmm.
What's really interesting is how early testing can actually stop bigger problems later on. Problems you might not even see until you're heavily invested.
It's like finding a flaw in the architectural plans before you start building the house.
Exactly like that. And there was a stat in the article, too, something like 72% of ad pros think testing ads beforehand makes them more successful.
Wow, 72%. That's significant.
It is, because it shows they understand what people actually respond to.
Yeah.
It underlines that need to understand the audience right from the beginning.
So it's not just about avoiding total failure. It's about making sure the idea connects.
Yes, precisely. Does it actually solve the problem you think it solves? To the people you want it to solve it for?
Yeah.
Does it, resonate?
Yeah, because what excites us internally might not excite the customer at all.
Mm-hmm. The research is clear. Testing confirms if you're hitting a real pain point
Right.
and if your solution is actually appealing to that target market. And it goes beyond just the basic concept, validation. Testing lets you fine-tune things. Features, pricing, even how you talk about the product, your marketing message.
So you can tweak it based on real feedback.
Yeah, and sometimes you discover unexpected good things. Or maybe hidden problems like tech glitches or usability issues you just wouldn't have guessed.
Right, things that only come up when someone actually uses it.
Exactly. So it boils down to swapping out your own assumptions.
No, for actual data.
For data-driven insights, yeah. It reduces that uncertainty that always comes with launching something new. It boosts your chances because you're actively trying to meet a need you know exists.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So let's get practical. The how. How do companies actually do this testing?
Right. The article we look at outlines a few key methods. The first big one is market research. That's kind of the foundation.
Market research, like surveys and stuff?
Exactly. Surveys, interviews, focus groups. It's about directly talking to potential customers, getting their perspective,
What are you trying to find out?
their needs, their frustrations, their pain points, and, crucially, how interested they are in what you're proposing. The article stresses this is how you get that rich detail on features people want and really understand who your target audience is.
So step one, talk to the people you want to sell to. Seems obvious, but probably often skipped.
You'd be surprised. Then there's A/B testing.
I've heard of that, like testing two versions of a web page.
Precisely. You show version A to one group, version B to another, and see which performs better. Maybe it's clicks, signups, sales, whatever your goal is.
So you let the data decide what works best.
Mm-hmm. It's super useful for optimizing things like website layouts, app interfaces, even email subject lines, real-world results telling you what connects.
Okay, makes sense. What else?
Prototyping. This is about making a simpler early version of your product. Doesn't have to be perfect or have all the features.
Just something people can interact with.
Yeah, exactly. Get it in front of a target group, see how they use it, get their feedback on performance, usability, what needs improving. It's tangible.
Like a rough draft to test the core idea.
You got it. And then kind of building on that is pilot or beta testing.
Okay, beta testing, like when software companies release early versions.
Yep. That's it. You release a more complete functional version, but only to a limited group of users in a real-world setting.
Why limit?
So you can see how it holds up under actual use stability, reliability, the whole user experience before you launch it to everyone. It's a final shakedown, basically.
So these different methods give you feedback points all along the way, from just an idea to almost finished. Let's circle back to risk reduction. How does all this testing tangibly cut down on potential problems?
Well, the cognitive market research piece puts it plainly. Testing is like an early warning system.
Okay.
It lets you spot those potential disasters. Maybe the core idea is flawed. Maybe it's really difficult to use. Maybe the price is way off before you go big, before the main launch.
And if you don't do it, the consequences can be pretty severe.
Oh, definitely. The article lists them out. Product doesn't meet expectations, doesn't meet market needs, you lose a bunch of money, and you can really damage your brand's reputation.
Ouch. Reputation damage is hard to fix.
It's very hard. But good testing. It validates your idea. It confirms you're on the right track, that people actually see value in what you're doing.
It's like a series of quality checks before shipping.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And the feedback you get from surveys, focus groups, playing with prototypes, it's gold. It highlights design flaws, glitches, pricing issues.
Before you've spent a fortune on mass production or marketing.
Exactly. That lets you make changes early, which naturally reduces risk and makes the final product much more likely to succeed. You're basing decisions on what customers say and do, not just what you think inside the company. That builds confidence and stops those really expensive post-launch headaches.
So being proactive with this evaluation seems like the core message. What are the specific upsides, the benefits companies get from doing this well?
Right, the benefits. The article highlights several key ones. First off, like we said, risk avoidance. Spotting those flaws or disconnects early saves you from wasting time and money later.
Makes sense. The ounce of prevention idea.
Totally. Second, enhanced product quality. When you actually listen to customer feedback during testing and make changes,
The product gets better.
it gets better. Features improve, it becomes easier to use, it fits the market better, you end up with something much more appealing.
It's almost like co-creating with your customers.
In a way, yeah. Which leads to the next benefit. Really understanding customer preferences.
Okay.
Testing gives you direct insight into what they want, what annoys them, what they expect, how they actually use things. That's invaluable for tailoring the product and the marketing. Get that right, and your launch is much more likely to succeed. Plus, the article notes, it builds internal confidence too.
And I guess having all that data makes making big decisions easier down the road.
Absolutely. Data-driven decisions.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of the guesswork out of launching something new. But, and this is a crucial, the article mentions,
Yes.
you have to test with the right audience.
What do you mean, right audience?
The group you test with needs to actually represent the people you intend to sell to. If you test with the wrong group, you could get glowing feedback that's totally misleading because those people would never actually buy it.
Ah, I see. So positive feedback isn't always useful feedback if it's from the wrong people. That's a really important point. Okay, so what are some other common ways companies mess this up, even when they try to test?
Well, the article points out a few common pitfalls. A big one is rushing it.
Rushing the testing. Why would they do that?
Pressure to launch quickly? Maybe.
Yeah.
So they cut feedback cycles short, do superficial tests, don't really replicate how people would use it in the real world.
And the downside.
You miss things,
Mm.
undetected flaws, opportunities to make it better, and then boom, you launch, and you get hit with complaints and negative reviews.
So trying to save time up front costs you big time later.
Exactly. Another mistake is using a bad sample size.
Too small.
Too small, or not diverse enough, too homogeneous. If your test group doesn't reflect the wider market you're targeting, the results will be skewed. You'll think you have a winner, but it misses the mark when it actually launches.
Like asking only your friends if they like your new song?
Yeah, something like that. You need a representative sample. And then there's the problem of what you do with the feedback.
Meaning?
The article highlights this, ignoring critical feedback. Sometimes testing shows you need to make big changes.
And companies don't want to.
They might hesitate because it could mean delays, more cost, but the article is firm. Ignoring major criticisms pointed out in testing is a recipe for failure on launch day and bigger losses long term.
So you have to be brave enough to actually act on the feedback, even if it's tough to hear or means changing course significantly.
Absolutely. Successful testing isn't just ticking a box. It needs real planning, careful execution, and crucially, a willingness to adapt based on what you learn from potential customers.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the core message seems crystal clear. Testing your ideas before you launch isn't just like a nice to have, it's fundamental.
It's essential for cutting down risks, boosting product quality, truly getting your customer, and ultimately just making success far more likely.
It moves you from just hoping it works.
To having actual evidence and making informed moves.
Yeah.
Strategic confidence, really.
This has been super insightful. Okay, for everyone listening, here's something to chew on. Think about the last new idea you came across. Could be yours, a colleague's, some new product you saw. What signs were there or weren't there that it had been properly tested? And how do you think that affected how it was received? It's kind of a cool way to look at innovation now, right?
It really is. Understanding this testing process gives you a valuable lens. You start seeing why some things take off and why other seemingly great ideas just fizzle out.